All right, One Crazy Summer here. Chapter, we're gonna call it 32. I'm on page 104 of this edition, and the chapter's called B11. Second to last chapter. We told Cecile everything about our excursion to San Francisco, the hippies, Chinatown. Vanetta told how the tall, blonde, white people took pictures of her like she was a movie star, which I could see Cecile didn't like one bit. Fern told how she saw Crazy Kelvin with two policemen just before the bus rounded onto the Bay Bridge. She gave us an earful about how Kelvin always said racist pigs, but he let the policeman pat him on the back like he was the policeman's dog. To that, Cecile said, "If you can see that, then you'll write poems all right." We asked her about being arrested and being a political prisoner and a freedom fighter. Cecile made it sound like it was no big deal. I've been fighting for freedom all my life. But she wasn't talking about protest signs, standing up to the man and knowing your rights. She was talking about her life. Just her, not the people. Vanetta, wanting more compliments, said, "We put everything back, just the way you like it," talking about Cecile's workplace, the kitchen. I didn't expect gushing, but it would have been nice if she gave us more than the nod. We packed all of our things except for the clothes we'd wear in the morning. It was hard to believe 4 weeks had passed by so quickly. When Vanetta and Fern had gone to bed, I went into the kitchen to find Cecile hunched over her printer. Pieces of the machine lay out on the table. She had the screwdriver in her hand, putting it back together herself. Although I didn't hear the door swing when I pushed it, she had and knew I was there. "I called your father when I got out," she told me, without looking up. "Delphine, why didn't you tell him what happened?" I stood there, surprised, shocked. It didn't enter my mind that she would have wanted me to tell Papa. "We thought you were coming right back." She kept screwing in one of the rollers, still not looking at me directly. "I counted on you to call him. Tell him what happened. I at least thought you'd figure that out. You're the oldest, Delphine, the smart one." She had just told me I was smart and a disappointment, reminding me she hadn't said one nice thing to me, not one. Papa would have made us come back to Brooklyn. He would have been mad because I didn't do what he said, look after Vanetta and Fern. And then Big Ma wouldn't let a day pass without telling me for the rest of my life how you aren't nothing but... Delphine, you let 7 days pass without calling your father. 7 days. That would have been looking out for Vanetta and Afua. You shouldn't have taken this all on yourself. You didn't have nothing to do with the police arresting me. I didn't have nothing to do with the police arresting me. They came. They arrested me along with 2 Panthers they really wanted. And Louis's mother is going to say whatever she's going to say. That's just how it is. All you had to do was call your father. That was all. My eyes stung. I was spilling over mad. I couldn't stop what I had to say, even if she stood over me and became my crazy Mother Mountain and knocked me down. I was spilling over. "I'm only 11 years old, and I do everything. I have to because you're not there to do it. I'm only 11 years old, but I do the best I can. I don't just up and leave." I was still on 2 feet. There was no sting on my jaw. My backside had not been touched, but I was ready for it. I closed my eyes because I figured the slap wouldn't sting as much when it did come. Instead, I heard metal on metal. I opened my eyes. The sound I heard was the screwdriver, missing the groove, hitting the printer's metal innards. She laid the screwdriver on the table. I had nowhere to go, but I wanted to disappear. Finally, she nodded to the floor and said, "Sit." I did what she told me. There was a lot of silence, but then she spoke. It was just me and my mother until I was 11. I wasn't used to having her attention, having her look at me and talk. All the while she spoke, she didn't lift her eyes from me. A car hit her, and she was gone. That was it. My aunt took me in to clean her house, watch her kids. I slept on a blanket on the floor in the kids' room for 5 years. I was 16 when she announced she was getting married. She said it wasn't good for a big gal like me to be in her house, seeing as she had a husband. She said in the long run, she was doing me a favor. Then my mother's sister made me a sandwich I couldn't eat, gave me $20, and put me out. I slept in subways at night. During the daytime, I read Homer and Langston Hughes in libraries. I tried to hide in the stacks, but they always found me and shooed me out. When I didn't have 15 cents for the subway, I slept on park benches, wherever I could hide myself. Delphine, it's a hard thing to sleep on the streets. A hard thing for a grown man. A harder thing for a teenage girl, no matter how big and tall she is. At night, I talked to myself to stay awake. I said the poems of Homer and Langston Hughes. I liked the words. They comforted me. Their rhymes, their beats, they made a place for me. They kept me strong. But I was always hungry, and I had gotten sick. Your father found me on a park bench. He and his brother had a nice apartment on Herkimer Street. He fed me, gave me a bed to sleep on. I hadn't slept on a bed since I was 11 years old and my mother was alive. Louis never bothered me, didn't ask me to do much but cook, sweep, wash his clothes. She paused. I had you the next year, 6 years from where you are now. I had Vanetta next. Both times his mother came up from Alabama and delivered you and Vanetta in that apartment. She and I couldn't get along, so she always went back south. Then I had the last one. That little one wanted out bad enough to come when she wanted to come, early and fast. She was born on a Friday. All I could do was lie on the kitchen floor and let her come. She stopped for a minute and said, "You were there when she came." I was? I was down on the floor. You stroked my hair like I was a doll, but you didn't have any dolls, no toys. You said, "Don't cry, Mama, don't cry." I think that's the first time I heard you really speak. But when she came out of me, you didn't say a word. You took the dish towel hanging off the icebox handle and wiped off your sister. I could hardly breathe. Then Darnell walked in from school. He did everything else that needed to be done. Why couldn't I remember seeing Fern being born, telling my mother not to cry, wiping Fern off with the dish towel? Where were those flashes of memory? Your life seems hard, Delphine, but it is good. It is better than what I could have given you. Here was my mother telling me her life, who she was, how she came to be Cecile, answering questions I'd stored in my head from the time I realized she would not come back. Here she was telling me more than I could remember, understand, picture. Maybe I was too young to really take hold of it all, but for what seemed like the first time ever, all I could think about was my own self. What I lost, what I missed, that no one said, "Good, Delphine." No one ever said thank you. Even after her telling me all of this, I was still mad. Maybe I'd been mad all along, but didn't have time to just be it, mad. Is it true what Big Ma says, that you left because you couldn't name Fern? I took her silence as a yes. For a while, she said nothing, so I guess she was done talking. I started to get up. Then she said, "I could have taken you with me and left the other two. You have my mother's face. You didn't cry. You didn't want much. You didn't talk, but you understood. But I didn't have a penny in my pocket. I just knew I had to go. So I gave Vanetta a cookie. That was all she wanted anyway. I gave the baby milk, and The picture flashed before me as it had many, many times. Put the doll baby in with Afua, the doll I asked Darnell to go to the store and get. I told you to be good and wait for Papa. Then I left. She told me everything I wanted to know and too much. It was too much. I'd have to take it out one piece at a time and look at it. She said, "Did I leave because of a name? You'd have to be grown first before I explained. If I told you now, it would just be words." She picked up her screwdriver and went back to working on her printer. Be 11, Delphine. Be 11 while you can. That was it. In the middle of the night, I woke up. Afua?